Hello and welcome to the show. Today, our staffing industry discussion has a unique twist. Today, we're having a question and answer, and Matt and Dave, myself, are going to answer some questions from recruiters throughout the country on different industry trends. So stay with us. Let's roll the start. And welcome back. David, how are you doing today, buddy?
Having a great Friday. How are you?
Doing great. I love these Friday discussions. Every week we talk about staffing industry trends throughout the country. One or a bunch of different topics comes up, and today is our first time we're having a question and answer session.
Yeah, it's a new thing we're trying out and loving to connecting with different ADs all over the country. This is exciting.
Yeah, whether they're recruiters in different industries or different parts of the world, everything is going on and it's just crazy right now. And so our goal is to just provide some insight in terms of trends and have a discussion moving forward.
Absolutely.
So anyway, let's get started. Who is our first guest today, David?
First guest is Alden Best Logic with Best Logic Staffing.
All right, Alden, welcome to the show. How are you doing, babe?
Good, man.
Dude.
You can call me. Thanks for having me on this show. I appreciate it. Doing fantastic.
If you could just give an introduction of who you are and what company you're with, and then ask your question, and we can have our discussion.
We'll do. Alden Bislogic, General Manager with Bislogic Staffing, which I started back in 2009. It's a boutique recruiting staffing firm specializing in the Northeast territory. So primarily we focus on manufacturing, construction, professional IT divisions.
Okay, great. And what question do you have today, Alden?
So one of my questions to you, Matt and Dave, is in your opinion, what is the timeline for the recession to turn around, which is directly going to correlate to the hiring and staffing industry?
One of the things, Alden, that's unpredictable right now is consumer confidence. And so we've seen over the past 2 weeks, consumer confidence change for the positive. We have seen not only the consumer in terms of purchase habits, but also customers starting to kind of turn on that hiring cycle. So one of the things we've seen is that we're seeing that the perm placement hires are actually outpacing temporary hires right now. We think that that's a bump that typically occurs in January is actually going to occur in December. One of the things that I was thinking about when you were asking that question is, parts of the country are going to start and close at different times. I think that over the next 18 to 24 months, we're going to have periods and locations of the country that are going to open and close depending on virus load and depending on industry trends. In the Northeast, I think you guys are doing pretty good in terms of the infection rates. I think the Biden administration will put in some plans. And I think once the plans are in place, I believe consumer confidence will definitely go up and customers will start hiring again. I think that the staffing industry is going to see their biggest peak in the beginning of January towards the end of January. I think those are going to be where the customers are going to rehire their perm placements in the month of December. They're going to start those project-based again, and they're really going to kick into everything in the middle of January. Well, David, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. From what I'm seeing as well, kind of going off of what you mentioned, is typically for the beginning of the year, particularly January, February, and Q1, is where we see a lull. Over the last 5 years, that's where things really tapered off. Companies are deciding on what their going to be, focusing their money towards and things like that. But now, because it's kind of, they've been chomping at the bit and getting back to normal, it seems like that's going to be the time that they're going to be really looking to bring everybody back and then enhance any kind of projects or certain things they're having.
Cool. Does that answer your question, Alden? Any other follow-up questions?
No, it does. Looking at the historical trends as well, 10 years ago, the country was in not a similar situation. There was a recession, which directly affected the staffing and recruiting industry.
Yep.
So I think you answered and hit the nail on the head. The second we start seeing the recession going upwards, we're going to start seeing a lot of hiring and beneficial outcomes to us in the hiring and staffing industry.
Yeah, I think the budgets for temporary staffing are going to get carried over because they weren't used in 2020. So I think as people plan their budgets for 2021, their normal amount that they're project-based or temporary assignments are probably going to get increased by 50% going into 2021, just because they have unused dollars in 2020 and they have projects that are still not complete.
Fantastic.
All right. No problem. Thank you. And have a great rest of the day. Okay, David, who we have next?
Next, we have Brianna Kempson with Unified Achievement Group.
Let's see. Brianna. Welcome to the show, Brianna. How are you today?
I am well. How are you, Matt?
Doing well. We hear you perfect. Your video is going well. So can you just give a quick introduction and then you can go ahead and ask your question?
Yes. So I am Brianna Kempson, again, with Unified Achievement Group, where I am the business development manager there. And my question is based on, things that are going on right now. What I'll ask my first question. Do you have any tips concerning? Safety procedures that safety measures and procedures that are being put in place right now?
Sure, David, go ahead.
Staffing.
Yes, so we are mostly being in touch with the state policies and certain things that are changing, because that's kind of where it branches out. Each state is kind of going through their own process on certain things. So we're staying up to date with American Staffing Association regarding any changes with the safety protocols, starting with the onboarding, having certain documents or certain things that are needed to be completed before beginning work, all the way through the current assignment and everything following up from there.
Yeah, Brianna, I think the most important part is to over communicate with your tradesmen or your workers, your talent in the field. I think over communication is going to be the most important part for 2021. Most people who are on contract or temporary assignments know that they're maybe trying to get through a period in their life. I think what we're going to see in 2021 is that workers are going to have a different relationship with their employers and their recruiters and their staff. And so the best thing we can do from a safety standpoint, honestly, is just over communicate the need that if they do feel that there's concerns, if they do feel that there isn't something like not quite right, to encourage that conversation early in the relationship so they don't feel like they're being ignored and then ultimately something bad could happen to them. Our belief is that our most important assets really are the workers in the field. The frontline workers in every industry are obviously the most important. What other questions do you have?
So my second question was concerning where do you see, what are some measures that you are putting in place to have employee retention during this pandemic, as certain industries are shutting down and maybe looking to ramp up, or some are closed down indefinitely?
We're seeing two main things that are really helping with employee retention. One is starting with the conversation up front, like I mentioned, which is, hey, this customer needs you. They might not need you for a couple of days, but if you perform well, if you communicate with us, we'll get you back on assignment as soon as possible. I think the idea of continued assignments or restarting an assignment in the near future will keep that employee engagement high and also keep them retained. The second thing that you want to talk about is with their customer in terms of employee retention, because if the customer is giving you the feeling that they don't really want to use temporary workers or that they're going to treat them differently, then employee retention is going to be low right from the beginning. The employees want to be wanted on the job site, but they also want to know that you're going to do your best to keep their hours at a steady pace, whether it's 20 hours or 30 hours or 40 hours. They want that consistency. And I think with the unemployment rate at 8.5% as it is, they're not so quick to jump to another job if they have a good relationship with their recruiter and there's a good relationship with the on-site team. And so those two things are in your control, which is communicating with the employee and also communicating with the customer to set the expectations for the next, again, 12, 18, 24 months.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And kind of add on that too, Matt. And another important thing, bridging off of the relationship standpoint, is still staying in connection with them through text messages, through social media or certain things, and staying visible with them, because the more you're in front of them, the more they're going to remember you, the more they're going to be comfortable with you and want to move forward again.
I always say, for 15 years, I always say temporary workers leave recruiters. They don't leave job sites. Typically, they leave the recruiter. And if the recruiter, the team, the account management team is good communicating, I think that they're going to stick with you, for the short term and the long term.
Definitely agree with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brianna. Have a good day. All right. David, who do we have next?
We have Eddie Ohanian with Beyond a Resume.
All right. Welcome, Eddie. How are you today?
Hey, Matt. How's it going?
Doing well. Can you give a quick introduction and go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, Beyond a Resume, we are a biotech, pharma, and health IT recruiting and relocation firm.
Okay.
My question for you is, we're seeing biotech and pharmaceutical in that specific industry, just competing offers are almost a new norm. Are you seeing any similarities in any other industries? And if so, are you have any type of answer to how you can make your offers potentially more competitive?
So are you talking about the offers that you're giving to candidates, or that you're making candidate offers to the customer? Which one are you seeing the most competition?
I could tell you that when we are now presenting offers to candidates, we are seeing a lot more competitive offers that they are now judging on what to make the best decision on. So, they're having 2 to 3 offers that they need, the weekend or, 3 days to consider. And we have never witnessed that in, 10 plus years. So I didn't know if you've seen that in any other industries. I know right now, obviously there's, several struggling industries out there, but didn't know if you've seen any.
Yeah. The situation that you're describing was occurring in most industries in December, January of last year, where unemployment rate was 2%. People were actually struggling with 3 or 4 or 5 offers, especially if they were actively working with multiple recruiters. One of the things I would suggest to you is, with the customer relationship, is it the customer that you're struggling with in terms of their reputation or their pay package? Or is it the relationship with the candidate? I think both have value, especially when you're trying to provide a long-term relationship with your customer. So I would have a conversation with the customer and say, listen, this candidate's really, really good. Even though unemployment rate is 8%, pharma is just skyrocketing high right now. If you want this candidate, you're going to have to compete for this candidate and be upfront with them, because you're the industry specialist when it comes to the current talent that's available. And you have to kind of consult and educate your customer on some of the values, because the customer is seeing 8% unemployment rate and they're saying, I should be able to do an 80% reduction on salary, just like the rest of the economy, but maybe not in biopharma. And maybe in this case, with all of the vaccines and antibiotics and everything going up, that, there must be some type of competition going on that's different than the rest of the industries. But what you're describing, I know that there were a lot of recruiters who are struggling with this in the early part of 2020. To make the offer better for the candidate, I think you have to just ask the question, what are they really looking for? And explain that to the customer. If they're really looking to work from home 2 days a week, and they're going to make an offer based on that benefit versus, a higher salary, you really want to know okay, you're going to get 3 offers, be right up front. You are one of the highest seeking, candidates out there. What is your top priority? And the way you can be competitive is when you give that presentation, whether it's a temp to perm or or a long-term perm placement is to make sure you highlight what they said at the first interview you had with them. You mentioned to me you wanted work home. They were able to agree to that. You wanted, 6 weeks of PTO. They agreed to that, and kind of really highlight what they were asking for at the beginning. David, what else do you think?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's essentially finding their why. Whenever having those initial discussions, you basically treat them like a sales conversation. Find out their why, find out what motivates them, find out why they're interested in a position or a change, and just focus on that and exploit it.
Eddie, what are you finding in terms of why they're looking for a new job?
A lot of proactive. We're seeing a lot more proactive searches out there. We're obviously with the unemployment rate, even though it is 8%, in our industry, I would challenge we're still, at the 2, even below.
Yeah,
and in our region where we have several of the, vaccine candidates in our backyard that are just, doing the research that, are taking several of these candidates. It's, we get to a point where, we have a candidate that we, submitted an offer, 5, 6 offers that they have that they're going through, and they can just be selective. We dealt with something similar, last year, but nowhere close to this.
It's offers. There's so much venture capital money flowing into these, pharma companies as well. So not only does the pharma have a lot of money to spend to hire new people, but also, startups are kind of piggybacking off of big pharma to do these micro startups with the intention of being bought by pharmaceuticals. And so it is great to hear that your industry is tight. I think what really will make you stand out as an industry specialist is not only to have the depth of customers and the depth of candidates, but also really, really, get down deep and understand what they're looking for. And if worst case scenario, just ask the question, out of your 3 offers, which one do you like best? And go back to your customer and say, this is what they need to make it happen. And go from there. But if you can identify 3 aspects on their first conversation of what they're looking for, and you can highlight those 3 in that offer letter, then I think you might be able to have some benefits. Have you tried that type of strategy before?
I mean, we type out every offer letter, and what we started doing is being a little bit more granular and also strategic on the interview process. Because we were meeting each candidate prior to COVID, right? Or trying to meet and sit down with everybody. Now it's all virtual. So, you can read body language, a little bit on virtual calls, but, we really try to get to know each candidate before we send them over. So we're, getting the right fit, going beyond the resume, right? And understanding it. And that kind of got taken away, right, with COVID. So you're just, trying to be as creative as possible. But, the volume of candidates are not there. So, you really, just have to, work with what you have and everything. And that's kind of what we're working with now. We're being successful with it. It's just we've never seen so many competing offers. So we're not used to it.
So one of the things you can think about is just thinking outside the box and having social hours for all of your candidates or for referrals of friends for placements you've made in the past. So you can, give referral fees to the people you've made if they know somebody in the industry that's looking for a job. Typically word of mouth referrals are going to stick with the person they were referred to because they had a successful placement. But the other thing you can think about is having a candidate social with your team and them on a Zoom call, have a drink with them, if you will, in that social setting to try to build that relationship. The other thing that Eddie, that I've been seeing a lot of is getting in front of the camera more. So doing social posts more, doing video posts more, and just talking about who you are, so that when they search you as a firm, you as a person and your firm, they're going to find some stuff on Google that they might not have known about previously. And when they do the same search on their competition, they might not be able to find that. But thank you, Eddie. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. Thank you for joining. All right, Dave, I think we have one more guest. Who's our last guest today?
Yeah, not sure if he's coming through. He was having some internet issues, but Pete with Best Logic Staffing as well.
All right, Pete.
How are you?
There he is.
You made it.
Yes. If you could just give us a quick introduction and then go ahead and ask your question and we'll start off the discussion.
Sure. Good afternoon. Pete Brigham. I work here at Best Logic Staffing with Alden. I am in charge of the construction, engineering, MEP, vertical division, if you like, however you want to put it. So, my life on a weekly basis kind of revolves around, current customers, longtime customers, and, always prospecting business development for new customers. So
Absolutely.
My question really, I don't know how important it is, but the last two people a lot of this talk is centered around the health, the pandemic that's been going around. So I'm having a lot of conversations with customers in regards to, where's their confidence right now as far as spending is concerned, because, that's a very big part of, when you're out there and you're doing discovery, with a new client or even going back to an existing customer, especially with budgets coming up the beginning of the year,
Absolutely.
what's your confidence in spending? We're not seeing a whole heck of a lot of confidence up here,
Right.
as to what's going on. So I don't know if anybody's seen anything else. I mean, if there's any trends that you've noticed, is maybe customer confidence going to come out of an area or grow out of an area, say like Washington, D.C. or the Southwest or the Southeast, make its way up to New England?
Yeah, I think, the Northeast is really strong. I believe that they're going to come back relatively quickly in 2021. I was speaking earlier about this topic because in typical years, as I'm sure you're aware, and typically what you've seen is that the temporary and project-based assignments are just booming off the charts right now. Typically quarter four is that standard. You make all your money in quarter four when it comes to temporary staffing. The first 3 quarters of the year, you're building relationships, just hoping to get some projects for that fourth quarter boom. And then in January, they all go permanent, or they hire, they get their new budget for the perm side. I think what's going to happen, and I think New England, that area is ripe to just really have a powerful 2021. And what I mean by that is we're seeing a lot of direct hires being onboarded now, which is very atypical for the year. A lot of perm placements going on, like more than I've ever seen in terms of perm placements going on right now in the month of November and December. I think that's what's going to happen is that's going to be an early push for 2021. They're going to get settled in their job a little bit earlier than usual. And those projects that were postponed in 2020 will be at the top of the priority list in 2021. And I believe that what businesses, large and small, are going to do is take that project-based income or budget and move it to 2021. So any unused budget, if there was any, move it over to 2021 and just really have a surplus of money for project-based, temporary-based projects in 2021. I think we'll see that as soon as January 15th. And really, it's going to come out of 2 things. Having a national plan of attack, I think that's where consumers are really just waiting for. And the second is really going to be the transition in general. And we've seen a huge push already in 2 weeks of having, I think it was like 18 customers approved in the past 2 weeks for new temporary assignments, but they're going to start in January. So they're almost like stacking the deck in waiting for this January kind of new budget era. They've already taken enough losses in 2020, and so they want to put off the projects to start 2021, but they're already planning on it. So I think my thought to you is what customers are looking for now is a consultative sales approach. Consultative in the fact that you have experience that nobody else does. You can bring experience in your past, but also the industry past, and you can listen to what they're looking for and then provide constructive sales. So, you can provide the feedback, and I don't think customers will think of you negatively if you say, that's not a great idea. Here's a couple other trends I would recommend. So if they're saying, they don't, for instance, if they're saying that we're going to hire everybody in February or March, you might say, that's great. I will let you know that there's a lot of hiring going on and the best candidates might be picked up in early January. Are you sure you want to wait till all the best candidates are off the market before you open up this search? And kind of have a consultative approach to say, I don't know if March or April is going to be a good timing. All the good candidates will be gone. Or maybe they just want a part-time worker, but they don't know that they need it. So you could start off by saying, well, for this project, it sounds like you just need a 20 hours. I'm going to find someone for you, but then I would like to help build the team in 2021 as you go.
Mhm.
Does any of that resonate with you, Peter?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's things we've broached in the past, so to speak. I certainly understand where. I mean, I had a meeting this morning with a civil engineering company. I mean, they work in
What
a
were
lot.
they saying? What was their examples? What are they telling
Well,
you?
they're. I mean, basically, in a nutshell, they're scared to death. I mean, they're scared to death. They can't get into, like, right now. They do a lot of project work in hospitals. They can't get into them, so that
Mhm.
they're not. There's no billable hours. They're not billing anything in that sector that they
Yep.
do. They're looking. They'd like to hire a few people. I mean, some of the other things too is that we're running into is, have candidates or we present candidates, and the bottom is the top isn't cleared out yet. And what I mean by that is that they can't really move anybody up in the top in order to free up the bottom to get
Yep.
someone in,
I hear
or
you.
move somebody in the middle.
Yep.
I'm having a lot of those conversations, so
Yep.
everything is kind of stagnant.
Yep.
I'm just, I'm just, no one's really been able to give me like a really good answer as to when they think that their confidence is going to be to the point where they can go to, the rest of the principals and say, hey, we want to hire it, or, more on the project base end where, the state, I don't know about Florida, but the state of Connecticut isn't coughing up a lot of money right now.
Right.
You know,
One of the trends that we're already seeing is that even though these direct hires are high, the shift in average compensation is going to be about 15 to 20% lower than it was in 2020. I think there's going to be a shift or a correction in compensation. And so one of the ideas as a consultant to your customers is talking about the idea that at this time today, or through the rest of this year, you might be able to get a $100,000 person for $80,000 salary. And better yet, I'm going to run them as a temporary worker for 90 days or 6 months.
Right.
And you're only going to have to pay $1,000 a week or whatever it comes out to. And you'll be able to test them out. You'll get them on projects. You're not coughing up a big direct hire fee, but at the same time, he's getting in the door, he's getting processes. And if something dramatically shifts, you just let me know on a Friday and we can find him him or her a new assignment. I think that's where I talk about the consultation approach. You have that industry knowledge of, in their head, what they're probably thinking is, this person's $100,000. We need to pay $25,000. We don't have that commitment yet from our CFO or COO, but I bet you they could get a commitment for $1,500 or $2,000 a week in a billable hour type of role that they could not lose so much money if something really goes astray. The second thing is people at that level want income. They want a job. And so they're going to take a 6-month or a 9-month temp to perm and work so hard to hopefully get converted early. And so I think I wouldn't be afraid in your industry, in your sector, to approach that as a viable job offer for a lot of people, especially if the city is shutting down, if hospitals aren't working. There's going to be a surplus of workers in your industry that are looking for jobs, and long-term projects and long-term term to perm might give them that solution that they're looking for.
Well, we're certainly doing a lot of planning right now, for that big jump. I mean, we're hoping with the new regime, so to speak, that's coming in, and, some national direction for this, Stephen King novel we've been in for the last 8 months.
Hopefully it has a happy ending.
Right. Hopefully it has a happy ending, whatever, whatever it is. But, we're doing a lot of planning, but, certainly, some, helpful things. And,
absolutely.
It just, what it basically comes down to, unfortunately, like with everything, is, money or a lack thereof. So, I've been in this business for a long time, and we can talk about positions all we want, but it really doesn't matter, if you have an open position, if you can't fill it, it's a moot point.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
That's the thing that we got to do. So
perfect.
But hey, thank you for the answer.
Thank you for asking your question. Have a great rest of the day.
Yep, you too. Take care, guys.
All right, bye. All right, David, is there anybody else on our list for question and answers today?
That is it.
That is it for the day. That was great. Those are great questions, man. Wouldn't you agree, David?
Absolutely.
David and I have a joke going on that neither of us were allowed to say that's a great question right at the beginning of the question because that's a pet peeve of both of ours. But anyway, this was a great experience, and we look forward to having a continued staffing industry discussion. And moving forward, we'll continue our podcast. And David, any last advice or any trends that you want to talk about, since you can be our last questioner?
Nothing particularly. It's always good to see, getting people all over the country, all different industries, all different focuses, kind of get into their brains and their shoes and seeing what they're experiencing every day. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to continuing these, seeing what the next one will look like. Yeah, I do. I'm really excited about the last 2 weeks. We've just seen just that kind of instantly overnight, just having all these orders pop up, and both on the permanent and the temporary side, but the permanent is definitely outgrowing the temporary side. It's coming back much faster than anybody predicted. And I think that's, like I said, I think that's the bump that we're going to see in Q4. It's going to be an unusual kind of, anomaly. Yep, absolutely. All right, David, hope you have a good rest of the week. Everybody, thank you for watching Staffing Industry Discussion. We hope you all have a great rest of the day and enjoy the weekend. Talk to you later.